funny. That question began with the mildly accusatory. You're talking as if you're the starter. Did you notice? I'd have to go back and do a frame by frame. I don't know whether there was a little middle finger swipe down the left ear there like we saw. I don't know if that's what it was, but I don't think, when he wasn't real thrilled with being challenged on this point, Myles. And yeah, hey, this wouldn't be the first veteran free agent who is told he's the starter the day that he signs in March and then is watching the draft in late April. And when the team for which he's the starting quarterback is on the clock, drafts a quarter. There it is. There it is. Well done. I think he's scratching his face with his middle finger. Hey, you who asked him that question, take that. But yeah, hey, there's a chance they're going to take a quarterback at number 20, depending upon how the picks fall. And then he's still the starter until he isn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, that question, I hadn't heard that before we just listened to that sound, and that made me laugh, man. Like, you're talking as if you're the starter, just almost as a teenager, and it's like, do you actually know what it is that you're saying? Because I don't know that you do. And yeah, if I were him, I would almost take a little bit of offense to that, because it's not like Andy Dalton has been this horrible, horrible quarterback for all his career. I mean, there's a band that you may or may not have heard of, Mike. It's called Bad, Bad, Not Good. And so it's like, I split that up basically into two. Andy Dalton is not bad, but he's also not good. So I guess, when you think about what Andy Dalton is right now and what he can be, it's not like anybody's expectations are going to be sky high, and they shouldn't be. But I think that he could be okay and he can be middling, but it's not like he's taken a team to the playoffs for, I think, 7 years now. I think the last time the Bengals made the playoffs was 2014. So I don't know. It's just, I think that he deserved the question. You're talking as if you're the starter. What assurances do you have there? Because if that question wasn't asked, how would we know that he has had those assurances?
By the way, Bad Bad Not Good is a Canadian instrumental music group and production team from Toronto, Ontario, founded in 2010 by bassist Chester Hansen, keyboardist Matthew Tavares, and drummer Alexander Sawinski. Who could forget the great Alexander Sawinski? How dare you question my knowledge of bands I just heard of for the first time 90 seconds ago? And we had the graphic up. Andy Dalton is better than the Bears. Andy Dalton has as many wins. He's got more wins. He's got 74 to the Bears' 73, and he's got 66 losses, and the Bears have 89. I'd say Andy Dalton's done pretty well for himself since 2011 in comparison to the Chicago Bears.
He is the Chicago Bears, basically. I mean, granted that, I guess he has fewer losses, a lot fewer losses, but if you just look
23
at those raw
fewer.
Numbers, but if you look at the raw numbers, man, I mean, like the touchdowns, they're not too far off. He has fewer picks. I get the sacks a game is pretty much the same. Completion percentage. I mean, the amount of wins, though, that's the striking thing to me, that they're just about the same. I don't know. I think he probably fits in better than we all have anticipated over the last day or two.
Well, and again, that's why the bar's low. The guy went to 5 straight playoffs to start his career, and after that, 2016, 17, 18, 19 in Cincinnati, a lot of things went wrong. He didn't all of a sudden become a horrible quarterback, and they kept him until it all bottomed out in 2019, and they earned the number 1 overall pick, and then they're going to go with Joe Burrow. And unlike when they had Carson Palmer and kept John Kitna around, they decided instead of sitting Joe Burrow, we're going to throw him into the fray, so we don't need Andy Dalton. So that was that. So There's just this strange malaise and disrespect as it relates to Andy Dalton, and that plays into the Bears' hands, I believe, for 2021. And back to that question, like, who the hell's the starter if it's not Andy Dalton? They're paying the guy $10 million. Maybe that's why Dalton gave him the finger. Like, how dumb are you? It's Nick Foles or me, and they're giving me $10 million. That tells people that this guy is pegged currently atop the depth chart. He's the starter. And, the money is what tells you the answer to your question, not anything that he was told privately by Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, Ted Phillips, or anyone else.
I think it's almost more, have you been told that you're going to be in a competition, or are they just giving you the job outright? And I think probably more people would have at least expected that there would have been at least a show of this is a competition rather than, here, Andy Dalton, here's this quarterback,
But
starting
why?
quarterback.
Why?
I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
I finally admit that Nick Foles is a bad starter. The only way it works for Nick Foles, and I still think that it was in 2017, it was like this strange football slumdog millionaire thing where he just managed to thread every needle that he could, one after another, until he's holding the Super Bowl trophy. But when he's a starter, Sims and I talked about this yesterday. The Jaguars gave him 4 years, $88 million. It was a disaster. He became the starter last year. It was a disaster. Until he hurt his butt on Monday night against with the Rams.
Which I watched all of those games. They were not very good. The only good thing about that was Todd Gurley, and so that's what saved him back then. So no, I agree with you that he's not a good starter. For whatever reason, he is Doug Peterson's muse. It just works out when those two guys are together. And I think we saw that even in 2018 when the Eagles had a chance to go down the field and beat the Saints down there in the Superdome. And maybe if Alshon Jeffrey catches that ball, then Carson Wentz would have been gone from Philadelphia even longer or shorter, but much before he was. So I don't know. I don't think Nick Foles is very good either. And I think that he's shown time and time again that he's not a viable starter, but I don't know. When it's Andy Dalton or Nick Foles, it's kind of like half a dozen of one and six of the other, right? I don't know.
When I think back to 2015 and the Rams and Nick Foles, the one thing that impressed me more than anything else was his uncanny ability to make the football land on a spot of the field where no one else was around. That's a skill. With that many guys out there, to actually put the ball and have it land in a spot where no one else is around, there should be some reward for that. There should be something. It should be like a rouge. You should get a point like in Canadian football.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.